gentlemen, please welcome on stage Adena Friedman, Chair and CEO, Nasdaq. Moderator, Lubna Bouza, Editor-in-Chief, Business News, Sky News Arabia.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, salve. Good morning, and thank you for joining the annual meetings of Baker Hughes here in beautiful Florence. It's my absolute pleasure to be sharing the stage with brilliant, accomplished Adena. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Well, it's great to be here, so thank you.
So we have 15 minutes, so I'm going to dive right in. Let's start with Nasdaq, 54 years of Nasdaq, 40 of Nasdaq 100. Congrats. Tell us more about the company. It's an exchange, an investor, a technology provider. How did it evolve under your leadership?
Sure. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. Well, over time, Nasdaq, we have been a disruptor in our industry from the very start in 1971. And as we thought about what is the foundation of markets, what are the key ingredients to successful markets, there are really three key elements and themes. One is, how do we maximize liquidity in the markets? How do we maximize the transparency? And then the integrity of markets. And so over time, as we've expanded our role in the industry, we have focused on building technology and data services that support the industry across those three key themes. So we now provide technology to 130 markets around the world, critical trading, clearing technology, as well as we provide risk management technology to the broker-dealer industry all over the world. And that really helps drive liquidity. The second is transparency, helping corporates and investors connect better together through data and analytics, making sure we really build the transparency of the financial system. And then the third is on on integrity. We provide anti-financial crime technology to 2,600 banks. We provide risk management, regulatory reporting, surveillance technology to banks all over the world. So our focus is, how do we make the entire financial system more secure, higher integrity, more transparent, and how do we drive liquidity across the world?
You're right. Lorenzo is probably here, so I would like to ask you, how did you convince him to switch back in 2021 to Nasdaq?
Yes, so Baker Hughes is a wonderful Nasdaq-listed company, and they came to Nasdaq from the New York Stock Exchange in 2021. Really, when we think about companies, we've actually had 500 companies switch to Nasdaq. At the time of the switch, we measure that and we say it's about $2.8 trillion of market cap has come to NASDAQ through switches. And when they really focus on what is the relationship they want to have with their exchange provider, we provide great visibility programs, a wonderful community of companies that are innovative. The companies that list on NASDAQ are innovators in their space, in their sectors. They're driving towards the future of the economy. I would certainly say Baker Hughes is an incredible innovator in the energy sector. And then for Baker Hughes, the ability to be in the NASDAQ 100, they joined the NASDAQ 100 in 2022. So we become a passive investor in their stock, and we're a forever investor. And today, the NASDAQ 100 has about 5%, we own about 5% of the stocks that are in NASDAQ 100. So there are lots of different elements of the relationship. But Baker Hughes is a wonderful, wonderful NASDAQ-listed company as a result.
I'm sure it is. One last question on the NASDAQ. Puro Earth. It's a company you have acquired back in 2021, a marketplace for carbon removal. I would like to understand the rationale behind this purchase and how can it help financing energy projects?
Yes, well, first of all, we acquired a majority stake in Puro Earth, as you mentioned, in 2021. And Puro Earth is really specifically focused on engineered carbon removals, very high quality carbon removals. We provide the attestation for making sure that they're high quality providers. We have 130 suppliers, I believe, on Puro today, from across 3,300 companies. Puro Earth is based in the Nordic countries. And it's really interesting because as we think about the capital markets, what is the role of capital markets in helping to finance the energy transition? There are three legs of the stool that I'm sure you all will be talking about here for the entire conference. But you have innovation and new technologies. You have ways to take traditional energy and bring it into the world in a more clean way. but then you also have the ability to suck carbon out of the atmosphere. And when you think about that, how do you finance carbon removals? Well, what we do is with Pure Earth, we basically put corporates who are looking to meet their net zero commitments with suppliers of engineered carbon removals. So think about it as biomass carbon removal and direct air capture, as well as 3 other methodologies that we've approved, and make it so that they can actually buy what they call them offtake agreements. I call them forward contracts, where you're making a forward agreement to buy carbon removals over a period of time. Well, if that supplier is able to get that guaranteed revenue stream, they're able to then work with banks to borrow against that revenue stream. And we have certain partners, Standard Chartered, JP Morgan, and SEB, where they will then basically lend against those offtake agreements. And so it allows us to scale up the supply of carbon removals through a market mechanism. And we are the registry for those engineered carbon removals in the world, and we're really, really proud of that role that we have here in helping support the energy transition through, really helping finance the future of energy.
Amazing. Adena, I'm a news anchor, so I have to address the elephant in the room. DeepSeek did shock Wall Street and the global market. What's your take on it? And how frequently should we anticipate disruptions of this scale?
Well, first of all, I think we're at the very beginning of time when it comes to the future of AI and what it can do for every industry in the world. And as I think we all understand it, the technology is ubiquitous, meaning it can be applied to any element of a company and across any sector, across any industry. So it is one of the biggest technological advancements that I think we will experience in our lifetime. As a result, you have to realize that it's also evolving faster than Moore's Law. So Moore's Law is kind of that escalation and how technology can kind of escalate in an exponential way. Well, AI is actually beating the models of Moore's Law. Well, as a result of that, you're going to have a lot of new capabilities that come out. And the big issue and the reason why DeepSeek is so important is that it is based on AI. It's based on open source AI models, and it is an open source AI model.
It is.
So the real question is, will proprietary AI models really drive the future of AI, or will open source AI models drive the future of AI? So that's one of the key elements of DeepSeek. And the second, of course, is the fact that it was built on such a low energy bedrock. So that it took a lot less energy than people would have expected. But it was built on the back of a large language model that is still energy intensive. So I think that what I look at this is it's just one of many, many, many evolutions that we're going to see as we see the development of this technology. I personally think it is a positive to see the ability for AI models to be built on open source with less energy consumption.
And more affordable.
That allows us also to have different models across the world, small language models, purpose-built models, on the back of these open source models. At the end of the day, though, the way we use AI, we provide a lot of AI actually now in our software solutions. We have AI-driven order types in our markets. And the way that we work with our cloud providers as kind of the foundation for giving us access to those models. We have a governance structure that looks at making sure we approve any model we use across our franchise, to look at the safety and soundness of the models, to make sure, and also security of those models. And so whether or not, I would say that it may not be that we use DeepSeek, but we're going to look at these kind of innovations and say, how do they become relevant to us? How do they improve our performance? How do they make it so that the models are more accurate? How do we make sure that we can drive those models into our solutions in a safe and secure way? I just think that we're going to see more and more of this, but it's very exciting for anyone who's a user of AI to see this kind of.
So you are positive, but do you think this could change the perspective on the major tech/AI US companies?
First of all, AI is going to be a global phenomenon. I think we just have to accept that. I also would say, though, I never underestimate the power of American innovation. And competition is the driver of our economy. So when you see new evolutions, new innovations, there are going to be others that want to figure out, okay, how did that happen? How do we make it even better? How do we supplant that? It'll actually drive more innovation in the United States, across the world, as we see these new models come in. I do not, I'm never going to count out the power of the American innovator, but I also would say that at the end of the day, this is going to show that you can be a global provider of this technology.
What's your take on the trade actions taken by President Trump recently, the impact on the US economy, the tariff hit nations, and corporate profits and earnings.
Well, I mean, I don't think we can necessarily estimate yet what different economic policies that the new administration is going to bring in. I do think that they're going to leverage this capability, which is to drive different trade agreements through the use of tariffs. I think it's going to be all about how do they establish a relationship with on a bilateral basis as opposed to a multilateral basis with different countries. How are they going to achieve the goals that the administration set forth at the beginning when they got elected? So in what we've seen most recently, I think that there's a lot of focus on border control. There's a lot of focus on making sure that we also have the right balance of trade. And we should expect that there will be different. It's going to be a pretty fluid environment for a period of time. The markets will respond immediately to known facts. They're not necessarily going to respond to what could be, but once the news hits the wire, they're going to understand it. They're going to try to understand how that impacts different sectors, different companies within a sector, different geographies, and they'll react pretty quickly. And I also believe that over time, if that becomes a sustained reaction, then the administration will look at that and say, is this going to take down global growth or the US growth? And if it will, then they may adjust to make sure that they have a growth agenda, they want to maintain a growth agenda. And so I think that they're going to balance out the use of this tool with maintaining growth in the United States. And that will be a big part of the calculus that they'll go through over the next 4 years.
Yep. On the IPO market, do you think it's going to heat up in 2025? What's your outlook there?
Yeah, we've actually been expecting that throughout the latter half of 24. We've had a lot more, I would say, certain conversations with companies looking to tap the public markets in 2025. I think it has a lot more to do with the fact that the U.S. economy has remained very resilient. There's been solid growth, low unemployment, inflation's come down, monetary policy's more known, not perfectly known, but a lot more known than it was in 22 or 23. And that has created a more stable environment for investors to commit risk capital. So investors are more ready, companies are more ready. You've seen them really work on creating profitable growth and sustainable, I would say a sustainable corporate capability from a financial perspective. And so they're ready to come out. So we have a lot of companies, many dozens of companies that are preparing to go public. We're having very specific conversations on dates, in Q2 through Q4. So we do anticipate it will be a healthier IPO environment as we go through the year. But that, of course, is predicated on continued growth and resilience of the U.S. economy.
Amazing. I have 2 minutes left. So let's wrap up with this. What are the top 3 mega trends in your mind will probably drive the economic growth globally and the investors' decisions going forward? 2025, let's just put it.
Well, I'll look out over a couple more years than that, but I would say certainly the continued evolution of AI and how companies are actually using AI to drive economic outcomes for themselves. So how are we applying AI to be more productive, more efficient, and drive efficiency through our solutions to our clients? And that's what Nasdaq is focused on literally every day. The second is going to be on energy transition and how the energy transition, the priorities of different governments, and how the new technologies coming out to drive energy transition will continue to drive that entire megatrend forward in 25 and 26. And then the third is what I would call smart regulation. Looking at ways to take down regulatory challenges and unlock capital. So I'll just give you kind of a couple of facts. Yep. Over a 50-year period, the world has gotten 6 times more complex, but 35 times more complicated.
Wow.
So what does that mean? It means that when the world complexity hits the world, regulators, legislators, policymakers, they try to adjust their corporate policies and regulations to deal with that complexity, but they drive a huge amount of complicatedness into industry. I'm sure everyone here faces that. And so does the financial industry. So we've been looking at the financial industry specifically. If we can take down the cost of risk and compliance within global banks by 10 to 20%, that unlocks about $50 billion of incremental retained earnings. And if they can then use those retained earnings to actually fuel the economy, it could be like $500 billion of incremental capital that goes out into the economy to help fuel the massive transitions we're trying to, both AI and energy transitions, which of course are linked, that we're trying to achieve here. So I see smart regulation driving better outcomes, outcome-oriented regulation, really being focused and smart about how regulation really achieves its goals without introducing a lot of waste. I think that's going to be a big focus of 2025.
So technology, AI, climate change, energy transition, and smart regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, Adena Friedman, thank you very much.
Thank you.